All right, so part 3, we're going to be solving quadratic equations by factoring. Now, it's important to remember that the right-hand side must be 0. So, 7, we have f squared plus 29f is equal to 0. The right-hand side is indeed 0, so we're good to go. Now, we need to factor the left-hand side, and it's best to remember all of these things. Do we use the x method? Do we factor by using the GCF? Can we factor by difference of two squares? Or can we factor by grouping? So, in this case, I notice that these two terms have an f. So, I can factor an f out, and then I'm going to have my remainder. What's going to be inside the remainder is f plus 29. So f times f plus 29 is equal to 0. We're going to take each of these factors and set them equal to 0. So f is equal to 0 and f plus 29 is equal to 0. We have our first answer, and then this one is going to be f is equal to negative 29, which is our second answer. Remember, let the largest exponent tell you how many answers you should have. So since this has a degree of 2, then you should have 2 answers. For number 8, notice that the right-hand side is not 0, so I need to subtract both sides by 24. So j squared plus 23j minus 24 is equal to 0. And then I can go ahead and use the x method to figure out what the two numbers multiply together. That'll give you negative 24. And using those same numbers to add to figure out your 23. Okay? So the two numbers that I'm thinking are 24 and negative 1. Because 24 times negative 1 is negative 24. And if you add these two numbers, 24 plus negative 1 is going to give you positive 23. So we have j plus 24 times j minus 1 equals 0. And then you're going to take each of these factors and set them equal to 0. So this one is going to be 1, and this one is going to be negative 24. For number 9, we're going to subtract both sides by 14. So we have 3s squared plus 31s plus 10 equals 0. And then we're going to factor using the x method. So remember, it's a times c. So if we look over here, we had 1 times negative 24, which goes up top. For this one, it's going to be 3 times positive 10, which is 30. So 30 goes up top, and then 31 down below. So the two numbers are 30 and 1. 30 times 1 is 30, and 30 plus 1 is 31. So we have s plus 30 times s plus 1 equals 0. But don't forget, this thing is not 1. So you have to divide each of these factors by 3. So if we look at the 30 over 3, we can simplify that, and that'll get you 10. And does 1 over 3 reduce, or does 3 go into 1? Well, neither. So the 3 is actually going to swing right in the front of this s. So you have 3s plus 1 equals 0, right? So s plus 10 times 3s plus 1 is equal to 0. So now we're going to take these two guys and set them equal to 0. So s plus 10 is equal to 0, so we know that that's negative 10. And then here, this is going to be 3s plus 1 is equal to 0. We'll subtract both sides by 1, so 3s is equal to negative 1. And then we're going to divide both sides by 3, and you're left with negative 1/3. All right, so for number 10, Notice that we have 4 terms. So what we're going to do is we're going to factor by grouping. We're going to put parentheses around the first 2 terms and then parentheses around the last 2 terms. Now, what we want to do is figure out the GCF between these 2 parentheses. So the GCF between 6x cubed and 3x squared is 3x squared. Okay, so we know that 3 goes into 6 and 3 goes into 3. They both have an x, and the smallest exponent is 2. So the GCF between these 2 terms is 3x squared. The GCF between these 2 terms is 4. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the GCF, right? So the first GCF, the 3x squared, I'm going to write that down, then write the remainder, okay? And then for this one, that 4, notice it's a positive 4. So I need to make sure I include the sign. So if it's a negative 4, make sure you write negative 4. But in this case, it's a positive. So positive 4 for the GCF, then the remainder. So for this parentheses, 3x times what is 6x cubed? Well, we know 3 times 2 is 6. X squared times x is x cubed. So that's going to be x, right? 3x squared times what is positive 3x squared? So that is going to be 1. This, I have positive 4. So positive 4 times what number is 8x? Well, that's just going to be 2x. And then 4 times what number gives you 4? 1. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the GCF again. So notice that we have the same parentheses, right? So 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 1. So if I want to factor this thing out, I'm going to write 2x plus 1, my remainder, and then I can go ahead and put the leftovers inside the parentheses. Okay, and remember we're setting this equal to 0. Now, we can go ahead and take this expression and set it equal to 0. So I have 2x plus 1 equals 0. I'm going to subtract both sides by 1. So I have 2x equals negative 1. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So if I divide both sides by 2, I get negative 1/2. Now we have 3x squared plus 4. We're going to take this thing and set it equal to 0. And I'm going to subtract both sides by 4. So I have 3x squared equals negative 4. And if I divide both sides by 3, I get x squared equals negative 4/3. And then I'm going to take the square root on both sides. Now, the square root of x squared is x. And then I have the square root of negative 4/3. Now, here's the problem. You can't take a square root of a negative number if we're talking about real numbers. So in this case, that is not your answer. The only answer that's real is negative 1/2.